Designing your practice routine is one of the most important things that you can do as a cellist. A few weeks ago, I posted a video that describes exactly how you can use some practice techniques to see more progress. However, a lot of cellists, they go into their practice and they have no idea what to even start with. I used to experience the same thing, but I'm here to tell you that there is a way to have more effective practice and see more results. A good teacher will give you a practice routine that you can follow every day and kind of adjust depending on what season you are in your cello journey. If you do not have a teacher or a practice routine, then this video is for you. This video is also for you if you're just looking to level up your practice routine, make sure that you are focusing on the right things, and see visible progress every single week. Imagine this. You just started learning the cello. You sit down to practice after work, and you already know what are the categories that you need to build the skills for success. You feel calm instead of overwhelmed. You feel confident instead of unsure. You know deep within you that you are taking the necessary steps needed to play your goal piece. This is how my students feel after I tell them this practice routine, and I personally actually have been using this for the past 10 plus years, ever since I first discovered it. So I hope that this video will give you some peace, and be sure to watch till the end, because just like a good meal, the dessert is at the end. Step number 1, we need to do a warm-up. So just like a good athlete, you need to be warming up your fingers, your arms. You even need to be warming up your brain, because here at Inner Voice, we believe that the brain is a muscle that can be trained. So here are some examples of warm-up exercises that I give my students. You could do long bows, where you just listen to the sound, kind of remember what it sounds like again. This not only warms up your brain, but it warms up your fingers too. It kind of helps you remember, what is the cello supposed to sound like, and how can I create the most beautiful sound possible. You can do finger circles. This is one of my favorites because in the cello, when you play cello, you use circles for a lot. So you basically just circle each finger several times until it feels nice and warm. Then you can do larger movements such as wrists, and then the typical arm circles, which I will demonstrate for you. Okay, so step number 2, we focus on the technique. And I normally spend about half the lesson on technique, and I have some methods to make it fun if you take lessons with me. But regardless if you have a teacher or not, every amazing cellist that you might watch on YouTube or listen to on Apple Music or Spotify, they are famous because they have a foundation to every piece they play. For example, the 2 cellos, you may have heard of them or love their music videos just like I do. They have an amazing foundation of which they built through years and years of practice. You can have this too if you focus on doing a little bit of technique every day. So for you, it might look like bow exercises. It could be scales. Now this is a little different than warming up, because you're actually trying to develop agile fingers and develop the coordination between your right and your left hand. I want you to imagine the bow like a master painter's brush. The brush moves expertly with every stroke. It creates different textures and articulations, so to speak, to create this beautiful painting, whether it be a landscape, a portrait, or an abstract. Just like a trained artist's hand, a master cellist uses tiny movements in the right hand to create nuances in the sound. This is only visible to someone who knows what they're looking for. As a beginner, you may not know what this is, but I can help you find that. Furthermore, like an artist potentially painting or drawing the same thing over and over and over, trying to master the technique, doing scales every single day will help you master the different techniques that are needed to play any piece you want. Part 3 is the Etude. So this is usually a short musical piece that focuses on one specific technique, whether it be the left hand, the bow, slurs, scales, everything in between. This allows you to make your strengths even stronger and to figure out where your weaknesses are, so that you can become a better cellist. These are quite fun because they're often very well written. For example, David Popper's High School of Cello Playing, one of my favorites. Another favorite for more beginner cello is the Piatti book. My students will tell you that they really love this one as it's beautiful exercises, but it covers every single key. So not only you get to know the key signatures, but you also get to enjoy some beautifully written music. They're also short, so every time you learn one, it's like a little win. And most of the time, my students can cover about one every week or two every week, depending on how much they practice. Step 4. This one is now finally the pieces. So we are entering the end of the practice session at this point in time. For me, this is about halfway through. I spend half of my practice on technique and building the foundation, and then the other half on the more fun stuff like pieces. Most beginners, they skip to this part when they practice, and then they don't learn to build a good foundation. Ultimately, if you want to learn the cello, you're thinking of this as a more long-term thing. You want to have the cello in your life for many years to come. The only way to do this is to practice your technique so that it can complement your pieces. Start with the technique and find ways to make it more fun. Masters, they find ways to make the boring, monotonous stuff more interesting so that they can develop a technique that actually lasts and brings them forward to new heights. The cello is a difficult instrument, but it is possible to learn if you follow these steps. I believe in giving my students pieces that inspire them and make them feel joy, even if it's a piece that they're not technically ready for yet. We will learn one measure per week, or even just one note per week if they have the desire to learn the piece. I want you to take this away today. If it's the only thing you remember, you can learn anything you want to if you set your mind to it and if you're consistent. Try following these techniques though. Follow the warm-up, the technique session, the etude, and the piece. And those 4 will give you the foundation you need to learn anything you want. The cool part about this is if you only have 4 minutes in a day, you can go through these steps. If you have 4 hours in a day, you can go through these steps. If you have 1 hour, you can go through these steps. Just split each of them up equally, or roughly equally. Just remember to always start with a warm-up, then go through your technique, an etude if you'd like, and then a fun piece that inspires you to continue the cello. I have all of this outlined in my practice planner PDF below, so be sure to check that out. I also have some sample practices outlined where you can go through a 4-minute practice, a 30-minute, 60-minute, and a 2-hour to give you a few examples. So no matter how much time you have, you can still have a quality practice that afterwards you feel so proud of yourself and you know that you can replicate it in the future. And as always, have an amazingly fabulous day.